Sunday, July 17th, 2016, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today we're joined by one of our mentors, Jordan Bergtraum, VP of Product Management at Service Channel, to lead a talk on the benefit of being responsible for product messaging. So allow me to just briefly explain the format for those of you who might be joining us for the first time today. Along the bottom of your screen here are mentors and mentees from the Product Mentor program, where we pair up mentors and mentees one-on-one, participating all around the world to help make better product people and better product decisions, and hopefully in turn some better products along the way. So what we're going to quickly do is just kind of go around with some introductions. So say whether or not you're a mentor or mentee, and a little bit about yourself, and we'll start with Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Wade. I'm a technical product manager at Town Square Media, and I am a mentee this session.
Excellent. And Furkan.
Hi, my name is Furkan. I'm a product manager at a software company who builds enterprise software for telecom companies. And I'm a mentee in this session.
Excellent, excellent. And me, I'm Jeremy Horn, a.k.a. the product guy, and I'll be moderating today. So submit a lot of you are probably watching this through the productmentor.com/live. Top of the page, you see a video. On the bottom, you see some questions and answers, or at least a place to ask some questions. So post the questions up as they come in. I'll feed them over to Jordan, and we'll get you some answers in some fairly real time. For the more generic questions like what is a product, or does product management exist, those types of questions I'll save for the end of the talk, and we'll have Jordan kind of speak to the more generic things. But as long as it's related to the topic, I'll make sure we get to them in a fairly real time. So with that said, let me hand it over to Jordan to tell you a little bit about himself and to take it away with his talk.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate the intro. So, I head up the product function at Service Channel, which means I'm overseeing everything from product direction to product design and product messaging as well. I've been with Service Channel for a little less than 3 years, and I've been in product management for about 10, all within the B2B SaaS world for the entire span of my 10 years. That's become, I guess, my niche. So why don't we switch over to my presentation, because that will be helpful. So some of this I've already covered, right? So 10 years in product, 7 years in a leadership role, meaning managing other product managers or project managers and user experience professionals. I've been in a number of industries, no real consistency. The consistency is the software and SaaS part of it, but as you can see, I've been everywhere from education to manufacturing, pharma, legal, and facilities management. Facilities management is the vertical I'm in right now. Already covered this. So twice I've been responsible for introducing the product management function to an organization, both times under different circumstances. In one situation, I was inheriting an existing team of 4 product managers, and in another, I was going to be the first product person in a much smaller organization that had never had product management before, and that's the current company I'm with. And as I proved out the value of having the dedicated function and the reason that brings to the reason product brings to madness, I was able to prove to them that an entire department was worthy of their investment. So shifting just a little bit to the marketing aspect of what I do and what a lot of product managers are being asked to do nowadays, I handle both inbound market research as well as outbound product marketing, and it's the outbound product marketing that'll be one of the things, the main area that I'm going to be talking about today. So what can you expect from what I'm going to go through today? The benefits of having ownership of the product message. I think that's a good thing. I think product managers should be expected to provide the message around why a product is great, why a new release is great, why what the product does is great. I'll also talk to you about the challenges that come along with that. And of course, I'm not going to leave you out in the cold. I will give you some recommendations on how to address those challenges. So what do I mean by the message? Because that's a pretty broad statement. So my personal opinion of what that means, and other people may define it differently, but in my world of SaaS B2B software, it's the articulation of why your market should care. Right? If you can't find a way to communicate to your existing customers and, of course, your prospects why your product is fantastic in a way that will elicit a positive response from them, you're going to stifle the likelihood of your product's success. Also, what I mean is think in terms of big ideas. Not enhancements. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to walk you through or discuss the benefit of being able to explain to an existing set of users why a small usability enhancement was a win. This is more bigger efforts that require, usually require more effort, more resources, more money, but at the end of the day, the point is that have a bigger impact. And why having responsibility and ownership of explaining to the world around you why this big idea was fantastic will help you. So the message always has to be about value. If you can't express the value, another word might be benefit, you're in trouble. That's going to put you in a tough spot and put the company in a tough spot if you can't explain what the value of the work you're doing or the company is doing around the products that you're offering your marketplace. I also suggest when you're doing this, it's about putting yourself, okay, in the position of your audience. Think about if, turn the tables, and if someone, when you're coming up with a message, if you heard that message, not knowing what you know about your company, how would that affect you? How would that impact you? Would you care? Would it move you? What emotions might come along with hearing that message? Because at the end of the day, a lot of what marketing comes down to is figuring out clever ways to tap into people's emotions, believe it or not. And preferably a positive emotion, not a negative one. But and sometimes you could miss the mark and actually get a very big response out of them in the wrong direction, meaning negative, and that's exactly what you would love to avoid. So the message also is about some key fundamental business principles. It's better, well, hopefully it's going to be about, what I meant to say is the message itself should be about three, in my opinion, one of these three key things that you're seeing. It's either got to be about helping your customers increase revenue, helping your customers reduce costs, or making their life easier. I can't imagine in the world of software other reasons that your customer base will be interested in buying your product. There may be others that I'm not thinking of, but at the end of the day, I have yet to work on a product that wasn't either about helping my customers increase their revenue, reduce their costs, or making their life better, easier, faster. So what should the objectives of your message be? Well, some of this might be obvious, but I'm going to go through it anyway. You want to engage your audience, and your audience could be any, again, typically it could be two different things. It could be your prospects, meaning those that are new to your organization, right? Just at the beginnings of discovering who you guys are, what you guys do. The other audience is your existing customers, and you want to be marketing to them as well. The reason for that is twofold. One, it can help with customer satisfaction, right? If you're building all this great stuff that would help your existing client base and they don't know it, or you're not doing a great job explaining to them why it's great, they may not get it. They may not put value towards that. And if you're putting in all this effort and you're not getting value out of it through your existing customers, your client sat value will not go up at the rate you would expect. So make sure that you're messaging that will be good, and it may be two different messages. That's very possible for your prospects as well as your existing customers. All right, and as I mentioned earlier, the whole idea here is you want to tap into some emotion here that's going to get them interested in what you have to say. The message needs to tap into something that will turn something on in their brain.
So we had a question that just came in. The question is from Marissa. Marissa's asking, would you recommend that all product managers, regardless of level of position, own the message?
Yes, I do. That's a good question. I think a product manager at any level, let's think of it this way, maybe I'll rephrase, I'll be a little bit more specific. If you are responsible for the product, yes, you should be responsible for the message. So what I mean by that is if you are, let's say, a junior product manager working closely with another product manager who really is the ultimate owner of the product and you're helping them, I could see then that you needing to work closely with them or defer the final message to that product manager. I understand that, but if you own the product, own the message. And you'll see why I feel that way. I don't want to have any spoilers a little further down in my presentation. I'll explain why I think that's quite relevant and helpful and important.
And her follow-up question, you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but I'll ask the question anyway. So if so, how would you engage junior product managers who may be more interested in other functions of product management? For example, the tech backlog management. So I guess she's asking, what if they don't care so much about the message and they care more about dealing just with the backlog?
Well, that's fine. If that's your role, and that's all your role, your company is expecting of you is to be more on the technical side and be there to help drive the actual creation of the product with engineering, UX, QA, then I would understand that you might not need to own the message, nor might you may not be in a position to own the message. So if that's your role, yes, I'll take back what I said, that every single product manager has to be responsible for the message.
All right, cool. So that's all the questions we have right now. Keep them coming in to theproductmentor.com/live. With that said, let me hand it back to you, Jordan, to continue the talk.
Sure. So, other messages of other objectives of your message. Pretty simple stuff, and I kind of already alluded to this. It should be either to acquire new customers or to retain your existing customers. And there is like a third that isn't on this slide, and I will say it's to upsell existing customers, because a lot of times sometimes what you may be working on is a product or a module to an existing product that will have an additional price tag on it in order for them to take advantage of that feature. So upsell is another objective of product messaging. Another opportunity when it comes to product messaging and messaging your products well is lead generation. And for those of you that might not know what that means, lead generation is the very, very beginning of your of the sales cycle in the typically in the B2B world. This is less relevant in the consumer space. But when you're in B2B and you're selling to businesses, lead generation is all about getting them aware of who you are, and then getting just enough interest for them to either contact you or you to be able to reach out to them to set up that very first conversation with one of your sales folks. The other opportunity with your messaging is if it's a good message, you'll sound like a thought leader. If you're crafting your messages in a way that makes them sound like, I'm here to help you solve serious problems within your organization or within a marketplace, that's compelling. And that makes you sound like a thought leader. And at the end of the day, sounding like a thought leader just means you sound really smart. And it doesn't hurt when you're a product manager to sound really smart no matter who you're talking to, whether it be someone internally or externally. So now let's get into the meat of why do I think it's relevant to own the product message. Well, first off, my strong opinion is very few people, if nobody in your organization, should be in a position to understand the value better than the product manager working on that feature. Now, there are exceptions, and don't get me wrong. If someone came to you and said to you, go build this, because it's the CEO of your company, and they're the ultimate boss, and they say, go do it, well, okay, maybe the CEO at that point in time is in a position to better explain why there's great value. But if you're a product manager who at the end of the day is doing what I think you should be doing, which is bringing in new and interesting information from the outside world about what the marketplace needs, things even your CEO might not know, or anyone else in the organization shouldn't or doesn't know, that puts you in a position, in my mind, that you're going to understand the value and the why of what you're building. Right? You better understand the why and the value. Otherwise, that could be a problem. Right? As I was saying, you need to be the market guru. No one should understand what's going on in the marketplace better than you. One of the greatest ways for a product manager to add value to any organization is to bring information into the company from the outside world that theoretically nobody else in the organization has. That's how you really start driving value for yourself as an individual and your career path, and for your company as a whole to be discovering information that the company previously did not have. You should understand why it's a win. It's all part of the same idea that you got to know this. You got to understand why this is both good for your clients, prospects, and even potentially the company. Why is it a win for everyone? Okay, why is it a win for you as an organization, as well as why is it a win for the people you're trying to sell it to? So at the end of the day, the message is all about benefit, value, a problem, what problem you're solving, right? And I already kind of touched on this earlier, that this is what the message needs to be about, and the product manager, again, needs to be the person that understands this better than anybody. And if you don't, well, again, there could be an issue there. But here's the key benefit that oftentimes product managers tend to forget, and why I think owning the product messaging part of the marketing is valuable. There's a less obvious opportunity here. Here it is. It will enable you to validate whether what you're going to work on makes any sense. And I don't even just mean makes any sense, but is it a great idea? Is it an amazing idea? If before you ever start building it, you should be starting to think about how would you message it? How are you going to market it? How are you going to talk about it with your prospects, existing customers, even employees of your organization? If you can't do that, then that's an incredible opportunity for you to take a step back and ask yourself a key question. And the question is, why am I building this again? What's the real reason we're doing this? Now, sometimes there are things that there are reasons to build something even when you can't answer that question well. And one of those examples could be, and this typically happens more when a company's on their earlier phases of their evolution. But if you have only, let's say, 5 customers, and one of them is really, really large and represents 80% of your revenue, and they basically ask you to do it, and you can't risk losing them, and you know the other 4 customers won't care, right? And even your prospects might not care, and that you are specifically doing it to keep 80% of your revenue happy, okay, I will give you that, right? There are exceptions to this rule. But once you get to scale, once you get to the point that your primary goal is to keep the benefit of marketplace, meaning many, 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 many potential prospects and your existing customers, I think this rule pretty much holds. You need to take a step back. If you cannot articulate the message well about what the value is, what problem it's going to solve, who it's a win for, how much time it's going to save them, how much money it's going to save them, and how much money it's going to make them, you can't do that. You better understand why you're building it and revisit that. Now, it could mean one of 2 things. It could mean that there's still a great reason to build it, you just haven't yet gotten yourself to the point that you understand it, right? Because let's say it was handed to you by somebody else as a great idea. It's still your job to understand what the win is. You got to understand why it's a great thing to do, because you're the evangelist for the product. You're the face of the product externally, but even internally, right? When the engineers come to you and want to appreciate, why are we building this again? They're coming to you. Generally not going to go to anybody else. And it's important that they have an appreciation for the message as well. So it's not just about the external, it's about the internal. The other thing could be is if you're struggling to articulate the message, the win, the value, it could be that what you're about to build or what you think you're going to build maybe shouldn't be built. Or, that's a little extreme, maybe shouldn't be built the way you're planning on building it. Because maybe it's not actually solving a problem. Maybe there is no big win. Maybe it just sounded great in someone's head, your head, someone else's head, and it wasn't really completely thought out. Working on that message is kind of the end game of as you thought it all out and worked on the problem you wanted to solve, worked on how you're solving it, and you have that down, the message should be there for you. It should be readily available, and if it's not, well, backtrack. Start asking those questions. Should I be building this? Should I be building it the way I'm building it? Am I truly understanding the problem that maybe I don't understand the problem the way I thought I did. So it's a great gut check. So
we had some questions that just came in.
Sure.
First one, I'm going to hand it over to Furkan to ask his question.
Okay, so I wanted to ask that in a B2B business, how would you effectively deliver a message that adds qualitative value to the end users and not the direct business that you're selling your software to?
Are you asking what are some ways to quantitate the value of the within the message?
Kind of, because for example, the business you're selling your product does not see the increased revenue or the reduced cost because it is a qualitative feature which is adding value to the end users and not the business itself.
Okay, what you're asking is, in the event that the plan here is not to save money or help them make money, but is more qualitative in nature.
Increasing the user experience, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So if what you were working on was a change to the user experience, that's a tricky one to message in a way that I think will be wildly compelling, especially to your prospects. Because a lot of times a new user experience is more about supporting your existing customers than necessarily your prospects. It could be both. A better user experience never hurts. But I do understand why you're asking that question, and I don't have a hard answer for you because I'll be honest, I've always been challenged with that when we just do things that are making their life better through a better user experience, it has been hard to get to make that sound super exciting to anybody other than the users of the product, the existing users of the product, and even half the time, half of them might not care because if they're not if they were not on the side of the fence and thought there was a problem in the first place, they may not care. So I will admit, I do not have a great answer to that when you can't put numbers around it. You're right. There is a challenge there. And then it comes down to more the creativity of figuring out what was the problem with the previous user experience and what's better now. And yeah, you're going to probably get stuck using some cheesy words like faster, better, easier. It's so hard to avoid those words, but sometimes get clever. Pull out your your dictionary and look for synonyms that are just different, just to be different. Trust me, I've done that. As I hate those words, so I look for opportunities to find other words that just might make them think a little bit more because they're always just hearing faster, easier, better. It doesn't register with them. So I just try to find out crazy alternatives like supercharged or just even though it sounds cheesy, I'm a fan of just trying to find other ways to get them excited. So I don't have a more awesome answer for you.
Our next question comes from Marissa, and she asks, given this model and in an org with a product marketing team, how would you recommend product management working with product marketing?
It's a good question. So my recommendation, if you do a product marketing function, which isn't atypical once an organization gets to scale, is you should go to them with the recommended message. And as a suggestion, right? You don't want to step on any toes. You're not telling them what to do. You're not, being their boss. You're not being arrogant at all. It is just, hey, since I worked on this, I feel like I got a grasp on why our users will care. Here's my suggestion, and you take it to them as a suggestion, and if they are good team players, I think they'll 100% appreciate that. You're making their life easier. You're not making them guess. You're not putting them in a position where they have to make bad assumptions about what the win for the product is. So I found they're very appreciative of input that you're going to give them. So you shouldn't run into problems unless you run into a personality that just thinks like, oh, you're doing my job for me. But I don't think that's going to be commonplace. So I do think, though, the original, suggested message early on in the cycle of working in product marketing should come from you, and then you work with them on refining it, because they have their job for a reason, and refining the message in a way that might be even more compelling is a strong possibility. There's no question that could happen. And also, they're the ones also that usually, and I don't expect a product manager to necessarily know like the channels to use, how to get the message out, through what avenues. Should we do it via, banner messaging on LinkedIn, or should we, go to, some print publications, or should we consider TV ads, or should we consider build, right? That's the kind of stuff I would not expect the product manager to necessarily know. If you do, more power to you. But that's more the marketing team doing their part. What I do think is valuable for the product manager is the actual value proposition.
Excellent. So yeah, keep the questions coming in to the productmentor.com/live. With that said, back to you, Jordan.
No problem. So one of my tips is create the product message early. Why? The reason I just kind of touched on, which is it's a great gut check. Don't wait for you to have already started even working on it in terms of engineering. That's for sure. And my goal or my suggestion is it's part of the ideation phase. As part of your process of trying to figure out if this idea that that's come across your plate could potentially be a top 5, maybe it is, maybe it's not. One of the ways to help you figure out, would this be a top 5 win for this company, is to come up with a message. How would I message it? How would I explain it? Can I explain it in a way that makes it sound like it is a great top 5 win? Right? And if you can't, it's back to my original statement. Why can't you? What's wrong here? What's the problem? And think more about, is it really a top 5 idea? And that's always, I found my biggest challenge with product is trying to figure out what the top 5 are in the face of, in my world, having 50 great ideas. What 5 am I going to work on in the next 6 months? This can help you do that. I've already covered this, right? If you struggle with that message, you may have a problem with with the idea. Again, right? Is it truly a win? So the other question to ask, and I sort of touched on this, is, again, will this message resonate with the marketplace? Okay? Will they care? Can I move them? Can I get them interested? And here's something also to think about. And I'm not saying this is a reason not to do a great idea. Sometimes what happens is it's a great idea. And a lot of times, like the question just came up about, what if it's just like usability? And I even admitted that's a struggle to articulate that kind of a message. However, one of the things to always think about is, even though it's a good idea, maybe it is a good idea, and everyone in the company thinks it's a good idea, if you can't figure out how to get your marketplace excited by it, again, it still may not be. You got to consider whether it's worth building. Because at the end of the day, if the goal of the feature, here's a perfect example, is to acquire new customers, let's say that's the primary goal, that's what you think it's going to do, it's going to do that. But if you can't explain it in a way that gets those people excited, it's not a win. Even though you know it's great, if you can't get other people, clearly your prospects, thinking it's great, then you got to ask yourself, will this be a win? I know it'll make the product better, but if no one else agrees with you, meaning let's say the prospects, you gotta take a step back and say, gosh, if we can't message it well, we can't explain it well, do we still build it? And that's a really, really hard thing to do. And I will admit, there have been very few times I've actually had the guts and the fortitude to take something off my roadmap that in my heart I knew was actually good for the product, even though when I knew, but I can't explain it. Like I can't articulate enough what the value will be, that it's just more like in my soul I know it, and I pulled it. It's happened a few times, but not often. So it's a hard thing to detach your own emotional connection, your own internal message, to the fact that you can't externally message it. Always be asking the question, right? Will this message drive revenue? Can I message it so it'll drive retention? And similar to what I was just talking about maybe 2 slides ago, about the whole will it resonate with the marketplace, you also should ask yourself, will this message work with my sales team? Right? If you're in the B2B world where you've got a salesperson or many of them, they have to be able to articulate that message as well. Right? They're the front lines. When they're talking about something with a prospect in a meeting, if they can't articulate why it's awesome, but you can, that doesn't matter. That's not a win. The sales team needs to be able to message as well. So if your message is so complicated or is so specific or is so off the mark, let's hope that's not the case. And I'm not saying it would be. But if it's such like specific, complicated part of your product or complicated part of your client's business process to the point that your sales team can't use it, again, take a step back and think, should I build it? Because am I going to get a win out of it? Right? If sales can't sell it, you can make the argument it's not a win because no one will use it. No one will buy it. Nobody wins. Similarly, will the message excite your existing customers? Same idea. If it won't because you can't explain it to them, doesn't matter. You're not getting a win out of it. You're getting no mileage. You're getting no value. Not exciting them. Think about that. Like, darn it, I want to build it, but I'm not, because it's just not, I'm not going to be able to explain why it's so cool to them. It's just there. It's not going to register. I'm afraid it won't register with our current clients. And the traditional question that we're always asking ourselves, and the message can help you, determine, is the idea worthy of being on your roadmap? Is it a top 5? Right? There's only room for 5 in the top 5. And a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, I always have way more great ideas than I have resources to tackle. So what are some of the challenges you may run into as you start to work on your product message? How to make it meaningful. Of course, how to know what is going to excite your audience. And I keep beating that dead horse about excite your prospects, excite your clients, but I'm clearly trying to drive a point home. And look, that should resonate with you, hopefully, because you're all consumers. You're buying stuff all the time. And the stuff that typically we buy a lot of, buy often, rebuy, or spend a lot of money on, are the things that we feel this sometimes strange, sometimes inexplicable attachment to. I think the most possibly cliche but obvious example of this is Apple. As many of us probably are aware, Apple doesn't always have the best products. They actually don't. They certainly don't invent half the products that they have. But they do better than probably anyone else out there is market. They convince you, A, that you have to have it, B, that you need it, and C, here's the most powerful part in my mind, that if you buy it, you will feel good. Good about yourself, good about the purchase, good about being an owner of an Apple product. That's some of the genius around their marketing, is how they make you feel about being an Apple customer.
So we got some more questions that just came in, Jordan.
Sure.
The first one, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica.
You're muted, Jess. There you better.
There we go. Technologies. So when you're talking about if the sales doesn't get this miraculous idea and this miraculous product that you've come up with, what are your steps for kind of breaking it down? Because I think one of the things I've done that I've tried to kind of understand how to do better is like, oh, I have this really great idea, or someone has this really great idea, but no one quite gets it or sees the value. Well, maybe you can make a part of it. How do you kind of go around parsing through that so that you can create a product that everyone really will like or provides that value that you're really looking for?
Well, that's a tough one to answer without it being a particular scenario or situation. There is no magic bullet to getting people to, understand what's going on, like in your mind, that you think is so compelling, when they're looking at you like, I don't see it, right? Right. There's no magic. There's no magic. I think my point is, knowing that there is no magic, is if you try it. Okay, so you go to your sales team, you run an idea by them, they don't get it. You try again, right? You're attached to it. You think it's a win. You try it a different way, okay? They still don't get it. You try it one more time, right? And hopefully they get it, okay? That would be great. But if they don't, that's when you really got to start thinking to yourself, crap, I may be about to build something that just will not be a win because sales can't sell it. And if at the end of the day, like I said, if sales just can't get there, you can't get them there, you may just have to back off building it and doing it even though you're in love with it, and other people in the organization may be in love with it too. But if sales can't sell it, it almost doesn't matter, especially if the goal of that feature is acquisition of new customers, right? If it's just retention, right? If it's just about it, keeping existing customers happy, and it's just about, then like the sales part, of course, almost irrelevant, or less relevant. But my point here is, if you can't get sales in a position where they can sell it and they're comfortable with the message, articulating the value, that's when you may have a problem and you may need to pull back. And the whole point of the one layer up of me saying this is why that's another reason why it's valuable for product managers to spend the time to think about the message, what it will look like, what it'll be. Because then early on, before you start putting tons and tons of effort into things, you'd have that conversation with sales. You'd go to a sales guy and you'd say, hey, if we did this for our customer base, would that help you sell? And then all of a sudden, when they start looking at you cross-eyed and they're like, I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that means. Then, right, that's the very beginning of you knowing, maybe I have a sales problem where we just won't be able to sell it. That's my point. I'm not here to tell you how to work with sales. I'm not that big of a guru. I won't lie. I don't have that magic book. Jeremy, we have another question?
Yes, we do. Next one, I'm going to hand it over to Furqan to ask it.
Okay, so I wanted to ask that if you create an early message for your roadmap items, sometimes sales gets too much excited and right away start selling it. Should we limit the message at an early stage? What should be the different stages of messages in different stages of the idea development?
That's a good question. I think yeah. So, right, sales should, and look, every environment's different. Sales needs to understand how far ahead they can sell, right? And they usually don't listen because they get so excited. And I get that. And I've seen that happen tons of times. But in this world where what I'm trying to convey to you guys is just getting you guys very early aware that sales can't sell it, I think the conversation needs to look more like, this is 100% not on the roadmap. This is 100% not something we're building. This is 100% an idea I had. It's a crazy idea. I very well may never build it, okay, but how does it sound to you? Would this make your life as a sales guy or woman, sorry, better, make your life easier? Would it help you sell more product if we had something that does this, right? And that's when you kind of like go into your little like marketing hat and give them that like spiel, that 2 or 3 sentences of what it's going to do, why it's going to game changer, why it's going to save money, increase time, make your life better, right? And then see what they say. Right, the problem of them selling too far ahead, yeah, there's a little risk there, but hopefully if you beat them over the head with the, it's not being built, I'm not working on this, it's just a crazy idea, hopefully they'll hear that if you say it enough, and they won't go out into the marketplace and start pitching.
Excellent. So that's all the questions we have right now. Keep them coming in to the productmentor.com/live. And back to you, Jordan.
So, right, I'm going to hammer this home again. I keep, doing this, but the things that I think are relevant, I like to repeat. So the challenge is you're going to run into crafting a message that if it isn't about making them money, saving them time/money, right? Some people get those two things confused, but the reason why anyone would care about saving time is actually one of two things. It's either because it's going to save them money or it's going to make their life easier. So if it doesn't do one of those two things, that's why time's relevant. But if you can't, right, this is the challenge. If you can't touch on one of these things, again, think about, why am I building it? What am I going to get out of it? What are my clients going to get out of it? Uh-oh. So just beating that dead horse. Empathy towards your customers. Kind of mentioned this a little bit before. It's all about putting yourself in their shoes, but also like trying to figure out why they're going to care and why their lives aren't great right now. And it could be a result of their lives aren't as great as it could be, and it's your fault, meaning it's a problem with your product. And it could be that you inherited this problem because you started 6 months ago and the problem's been there for 2 years. It's still your problem, right? And it still means you have to have an empathy for your customers. And in fact, it's interesting. I found personally, when I come and inherit a product, I have way more empathy about the shortcomings of the product because I didn't build it. I have no attachment to it. Very easy to agree. So it's actually harder to have this empathy about the shortcomings of your product when it's something you built. But you still have to detach yourself. And if enough customers are coming at you, and I don't know what enough is, I'm not going to quantitate that, with a problem, just be empathetic towards that. Even though you built it, it's your baby. I know it's hard hearing that your baby's ugly. No one wants to hear that. But, okay, we're in business to make more money, right? So that empathy can go a long way. So you also may find it hard to actually validate the message, right? How do I know if the message is good? That is the trickiest part of all this. I'll get to that in a little bit about how to address some of these challenges. But I do appreciate that there is something we said for how do I know if the message will have that incredible emotional response that I'm hoping for. So one way to help is, with that previous, is you can ask your current customers, would you be willing to pay for, and then give them your spiel, your compelling message that's supposed to make them jump up and down and be like, oh my God, I'd give my firstborn child to have that feature. 100%, yes, I'd be willing to pay for it. I want it yesterday, right? That's what you're hoping for. Well, test the marketplace with your existing customers. That's a great place to start, right? See how they react to it. Your existing customers typically should be available to you, not always, but pick up the phone and call them. Send them, and see how they react. I do suggest it be somewhat live, in person, not via email. You won't get the same amount of feedback over email, right? You can't see the look on their face. You can't hear the tone of their voice. You can't hear the same excitement over email that you will if you're talking to them on the phone, or in person for that matter. So what's the lesson? So take responsibility for the message. Pretty clear. I think I've been pretty clear on that one. I do believe that that first draft of the message should be coming out of the product function. Nobody should be in a better position to understand that than you. Even if it's not your job, and what I mean by that is a number of things, not in your job description. No one in the organization is expecting you to do it. Your own boss isn't expecting you to do it. I don't care, to be honest with you. I still feel strongly that there's just too big of a win for everybody involved. If your boss doesn't ask you to do it, don't take this the wrong way. I think they're mistaken, to be honest. I think they should. And that's just my 2 cents. Take it on for all the reasons I already went through. It will be super helpful to you. It'll be super helpful to the marketing function. And it could avoid risk in you building stuff that you ultimately might not want to build. That might not be a win for your organization. So again, if you can't articulate something meaningful, something that's going to move your audience, to get them to care, to get them to want it, to get them to want to pay for it, then bottom line is you have to question it. You have to. Don't just assume. Don't just assume because a couple of people in your organization said it's great that that's the end of it, right? Because again, there's so many things that go into it. What if sales can't sell it? What if your existing client base won't care because they just don't get it? That it's too complicated. It's not something that they ultimately actually enough of them cared about, or that you just can't move them with it. Like it's not the big enough win that you thought it was, because it still may be a win. Think of it that way. It could be a win, but not worthwhile, right? What you may discover by struggling with the message or struggling to get anyone to care as much as you thought is that they care, they don't care enough. And what does enough mean? That the love you get out of this, which is kind of the return, does not outweigh the investment. It's too expensive to build ultimately because it's not worth the 4 man-months of effort to build something that gives you, a response from your audience of, that'd be cool. Right? We want to do better than that'd be cool. I think we need to do something that's going to move people to want to open up their wallet and pay for it, and a lot more for it, or open up their wallet and pay for it in the first place. And that is the end of my presentation.
Awesome. So we've got a question from Ruben. For the product manager, would the word message be substituted with the word benefit? How do you see the difference in roles between a product manager and marketing? I know you spoke to it a little bit, but maybe you could speak a little bit to this message and benefit difference.
Sorry, is the question what's the difference between a product manager and a product marketing manager?
It was a 2-part question. The first part was for the product manager, could the word message be substituted with the word benefit? Was the first part. And the second part is better understanding the difference between product management and then the marketing function.
Okay. So to the first question, I'm going to say yes. The message is about benefit. They're relatively similar. You chose a vaguer term, the message, not of any incredible reason other than I wanted to keep it broad. Benefit sounded just a little bit more specific, but most of the time the message is about the benefits. But here's the trick. What you'll run into every now and again is an audience that is excited. Here's the trick. Sometimes your audience gets excited about an idea that doesn't actually have a benefit, but they care and they want it and they're willing to pay for it. So I might argue, who cares? Build it even though there's no benefit. If they're willing to pay enough money for it because they think it's awesome, because they're convinced it's awesome, and they keep asking you for it, and they're willing to pay a relevant amount of money, then you might build it even though there's no benefit. So that's one of the kind of reasons I chose something a little broader than benefit, because it's not necessarily always about that. It theoretically should be, but not always. So the second question, I think, when you ask about like product manager, the product marketing, and I mentioned this earlier, there's certainly a little bit of overlap there, and right, we should, as product managers, craft that initial message, and then work closely with product marketing and hand it over to them. Let them do their job. Let them do their part. Don't do their job, for them. But I think that message initially comes from you, and then you support them. Support them any way they need, tweaking the message, alternates. They're going to come back to you with, what if we said it this way? Would it be as good? Or at least hopefully they do. They'll come back and ask. And if they don't, you probably might want to get involved and ask them to see the final before it goes out. Because, trust me, it happens every now and again that product marketing will take your message, change it to the point that they're changing the meaning in a way that's not okay. It could be that they change the meaning to the point that that's not what the feature does, actually. That they're overstating, because here's one of the things that you guys may have experienced working with marketing as a function is they sometimes are aspirational in their messaging. It's a kind word for saying exaggerating what the product is capable of. So I call it aspirational marketing. Very, very common that marketing does this. And part of our role, I believe, is to temper them a little bit with reality. Don't let them tell non-truths. Don't let them disappoint your customers, because at the end of the day, there will be disappointment if you say they're getting a Ferrari and you deliver a Ford.
All right, I want to go to Furkan for his next. He's got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Okay, the first question is, how does the product message evolve with time? You realized or does you compile the whole product message at the start of the development, or even before development?
So when you say over time, are you talking about the time frame of, ideation through to, let's say, like delivery?
Yes.
Okay.
And even maybe after launch as well?
It's a good question, and my answer is yes, it could, in the sense that as you spend more time thinking about what you're building, as you spend a little time starting to exposing alphas and betas to your trusted customers about it, they may come back to you with statements that you realize, oh, that's actually great for our marketing. I'm going to use that. I love it. That's fantastic. They actually can help you with figuring out, how do we explain this in a way that will elicit that fantastic emotional response? So my answer is absolutely. Over time, you should always be open to finding better, more clever ways of getting that positive emotional response out of your prospects and clients. So absolutely.
Okay, great. The second question is that for B2B companies, does it make more sense to keep the marketing and product management under the same umbrella, or maybe led by one single person?
That's a good question. So in my ideal world, I'll be honest, I think the product function, or at least the leadership of that function, should report directly into the CEO. That's my perfect world. That's my 2 cents. I think having the product function tap directly into business strategy is huge. I'm not going to get into why. It'll take me another hour. Trust me. So let me just say that. Now, given the choice between, let's imagine, the product function reporting up into marketing or the technology function, I would lean more towards marketing. I think that's a better marriage. And it is a better reminder, in my mind, of what product managers should be doing on a day-to-day basis, which is more tied to marketing than it is the technologists that are in the organization. I think it's a better reminder for them not to just constantly be worrying about, are my requirements done? Are my requirements done? Are my requirements done? And a better reminder of, do I understand my marketplace? Do I understand what sales is working on? Do I understand why we win? Why we lose? Do I understand how to message my product? Do I understand why our existing clients, love our product, right? All those things. I think it's easy when you report up in the technology function. They may not be as good at reminding you that you need to do that as well. So that's my 2 cents on that.
And just a follow-up question that um, let's say marketing reports to product management and product management reports to CEO. Does that make more sense?
Sorry, can you ask that? Say that last part again. What structure?
Marketing reports to product management and product management reports to CEO.
I think that comes down to who is ultimately running that product function. If that person has a deep bench of knowledge in both product management and marketing, I can say I think that's fine. So I think it just comes down to the leader, the person that's owning both. Are they capable of it? I don't know that if you just strictly come up through the product management function, are you ready to own a B2B SaaS marketing function? I'm going to say no, probably not, because that's not as we don't do things like worry about like I said earlier, the avenues in which to get a message out, how to advertise, as an example. We're also not graphic designers. We're not at heart. We might be, but that's not necessarily one of the key characteristics of a product manager. It probably doesn't hurt. But right, graphic design, maybe the UX function might be great at that. But so my answer is it would be fine if the leadership is there to support both.
Excellent, excellent. So that's all our questions for today. So again, thank you to our speaker, Jordan Bergtraum, VP of Product Management at Service Channel, for today's discussion of the benefit of being responsible for product messaging. And as always, the presentation will be posted to our SlideShare channel. And a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy, and to everyone else who joined us today, and the product mentor. And don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor, like today's speaker, Jordan, to product people of all sorts, all around the world, visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today. Session 6 starts January 8th. If you want to be a mentor, definitely sign up. And I'll be in touch with you soon. And also, if you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, visit our very own free-for-all job board at theproductjobs.com. With all that said, I'll see you guys all again very soon. Thanks for coming. Bye.